Hey there, friends. Octavian here, welcome. This is going to be an unscripted video. I don't do a lot of these outside of the Price Check series, but I don't have a ton of time to get a script put together and all that for this video that I want to make before the 10-day race, and I do want to get this out there the day before or the day of the 10-day race, because there have been people asking me on stream what build I plan to play, and I've been practicing and testing in hardcore one that I've been putting together that is a spin on classic Essence Drain Mind Over Matter Trickster with a few small changes that I've made myself. Now, Essence Drain Mind Over Matter Trickster is something that's been powerful for a while now. Gazzy has a really good general guide on it, but there are a few item changes that I personally wanted to make, and just a few twists and turns that I wanted to take the build down, because I have played Essence Drain quite a few times. I've played a lot of Trickster. It's my favorite ascendancy. And partially, that's why I want to play it, because I want to push the Trickster ladder. But let's get down to exactly what it is I've changed. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with the skill, Essence Drain is this right here, this little purple projectile that I fire. And when that hits an enemy, hey, Babby's first map. When that hits an enemy, that will apply a degen. It also does an initial hit worth of damage, which is not very heavy. The degen is what really does most of the damage, as you can see. But it only hits one enemy, or pierces through and hits two, because I have Poacher's Aim. So what you then need to use is Contagion, which is a skill that marks a bunch of enemies with a very light degen, but when one of them dies, if it has Essence Drain, it'll spread that Essence Drain, and as you can see, it keeps spreading along, and that's where we get our clear speed from. Now, the upside of this skill is that it's very gear light, doesn't require very much in terms of gear to do decent damage, and it's also very, very safe to a lot of mods. Doesn't care about Reflect, doesn't care about no leech, doesn't care about pretty much anything except for maybe no mana regen. It's the only mod I think I can definitely not run. But down into how the build actually works, I'm going to be going Trickster for recovery and damage, since Trickster gets a good amount of damage over time, as well as getting 70% increased recovery rate of life and mana on killing an enemy affected by damage over time recently, which is, of course, Essence Drain. This is just in a 4-link here. And as you can see, I really don't need that much for damage. I've got self-crafted gear aside from the Sarumpharax, which I purchased for 50 all-res for about a chaos. The rest of this is just gear with life and resists that I alked, and Eiler decks, which I'll get to in a moment. So these are the only two pieces of gear I bought, and they both cost me 2 chaos or less. So pretty damn cheap as far as it goes, to get to this point, at least. And as I said, not much of the gear is really required. But this is not a particularly new concept as far as a build goes. Essence Drain Trickster and Essence Drain in general, and this playstyle has been around for a while. What I'm going with is specifically Mind Over Matter, which is another reason why Trickster is great. I haven't gotten it yet, but Weave the Arcane gives quite a lot of effectiveness in a Mind Over Matter build. You get the 20% chance to recover 10% of mana, which is awesome. You get just a ton of mana and mana regen, and then the reduced damage for 4 seconds after spending 200 mana, which is approximately, say, 2 casts of these. Once I get, Contagion is going to stay on a 3 or 4 link, but once this gets to a 6 link, that should be around 60-ish mana, and, what was that, 200 or 400? Yeah, 200. So, like, every 2 casts or so, I'll get a burst of damage reduction for 4 seconds. Every 2 casts of the combo, which isn't that bad. On top of that, I will, as I said, be going Eiler decks, because one of the things that has always bothered me about going Essence Drain as a Trickster is, well, since 3.0, I say always, since 3.0 it's bothered me a little bit, is that you don't really use the power charges. You get 5% damage over time, and then when you go this node, that's 9% damage per power charge, which is nice. Not bad, actually. But Eiler decks puts them even further to work. It's a very common unique that doesn't see much play because it's got power charge generation and synergy, but reduced critical strike chance per power charge. So, not many builds out there want to generate power charges. I can swap up to these now, but don't necessarily want to use crit. It's not a very common combination, but this build doesn't care about crit. Essence Drain doesn't care at all. Can definitely make use of the life and mana on the item. And then the 10% mana regen, the huge power charge duration is great, and most importantly, the 1% of damage taken from mana before life per power charge means that as a Mind Over Matter build, I have 30% base, and then 6% from my 6 max power charges, so 36% of damage is taken from mana before life, hence why we only reserve the one reservation for the curse. So between Eiler decks and Mind Over Matter, we have a lot of mitigation. Probably going to be going Mind Spiral as my helmet as well, which I can get into when we go to the path of building. And the rest of the gear can all be rare gear if you'd like. Breath of the Council is probably best in slot as your weapon if you're going for high damage. But honestly, you could use Brightbeak for clear. You could use a Rumvarax if you really need it for the resists. There's a lot of options here. Just something with like 1.5 or higher attacks per second is probably great. Or Breath of the Council. You can use... I'm probably going to be using the Brine Rot Unique Shield to generate power charges in boss fights to get access to all my power charge benefits during boss fights, because otherwise I do only generate them on kill. Obviously the Mind Over Matter chess piece, what is that called? I should know that off the top of my head. There's a chess piece that's very, very powerful for Mind Over Matter, and it's not coming to me. But I have it right here. Cloak of Defiance is a great option. 120 flat mana, and another 10% of damage is taken from mana before life, so that would be fully 46% of damage taken from mana before life, and then 1% of mana regenerated per second as well on the chest. So, very powerful chess piece. Might be a little tough to get your hands on early, but it does end up giving you 4,000 total max mana according to my Path of Building, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, that's the general idea. As I said, I can swap over to the Path of Building here. And I will be linking this Path of Building below the channel. The reason why I don't have a full build guide here is because I am still very much in flux as to exactly what it is that I want to do with this build. The passive tree is pretty much set in stone. There's not much that I can do differently from this routing. I might drop these 2 area nodes if I don't end up needing them for contagion, as the area damage doesn't do much. It would only scale a contagion damage and not essence drain. This does look different from some essence drain trees you may have seen in the past. For instance, I don't pick up Sniper, and I don't go for Ballistic Mastery, that sort of thing. Projectile damage no longer scales the damage over time portion of essence drain, just the initial hit, so it's not worth picking up anymore. FYI, for anyone who's played essence drain in the past and is wondering why I don't have those. As well as that, we do go for 2 spreading rots, and for single target, because as you can see, my essence drain single target damage isn't great, with only like 80,000 DPS total if you include the average hit with the dot. I instead use a 4-link Blight coming from a pair of Allelopathy gloves, which is basically a 6-link Blight, because it's level 22 Blight and then Efficacy, Control, Destruction, Void, Manip, Swift Affliction. If you've seen my Blight build guide, you know how disgustingly powerful these are, and as you can see, 17,000 DPS per stack. You multiply that by 20, that's your max dot DPS on Blight. It's over 250-something thousand on a 4-link. That's kind of gross, and much better single target than Essence Drain. So every fight where it's, you know, safe for the build to be in basically melee range, I'll be using Blight to kill the boss more quickly, and that's going to be most fights, because this build will have Fortify from Shield Charge, it will have Enfeeble as an aura, it will have slows, it will have tons and tons of regen, lots of effective life, 200% life on the tree, and then 2.5k unreserved mana after Enfeeble. A lot of defenses, because I will be participating in the hardcore race, not the softcore. I prefer to play solo during races, and if you don't play with a guild and you don't play with a large group of people, it is very difficult to actually compete on the softcore ladder. Hardcore ladder's a bit easier. There are still guilds and like parties of people playing, but somebody can die from that party maybe, and you know, all in all, it just is an easier time. So yeah, as far as uniques go, I haven't sorted all of these out yet. These are just some really cheap options that I can throw in. Mind Spirals, you know, probably a few chaos at the start of the league. Breath of the Council is the most expensive item here. I imagine it'll be maybe 20 to 40 C. Hard to guess exactly how much. This will probably be a few chaos. This will be a few chaos. This might be around 5 to 10 is what I would estimate, but it got a lot more popular in 3.0. Might not end up using Belt of the Deceiver. It's just a really nice all-around belt that I can swap into the build. Obviously, I'd want a Witchfire Brew at some point, and then like a +1 Curse Eiler Dex, which I'd be corrupting to get, but that... I'm trying to keep this very, very minimal in terms of the gear so I can get an idea of how it's going to work as a 10-day starter and on day, say, 3 or 4 of the league at best. So yeah, if you're interested in more information in this, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I mainly just put this video out because I was getting some people requesting I take a look at it. One last thing I managed to forget is the Source of Pierce. Because projectile damage is not very good anymore with Essence Drain, because it doesn't scale a degen, you don't use Pierce support in your setup. My 5-link setup here for Essence Drain is Control, Destruction, Efficacy, Void Manip, and Swift Affliction on Essence Drain. The 6th link would probably be an Empower. It says Decay is going to be higher damage, but I'd probably go for an Empower, 21 Essence Drain, and try and get that by the end of the 10-day as our 6th link. maybe even a level 4 in power if I can manage it. But this will be the 5 link we'll be starting with. And so I don't get the pierces that I need from my scale gems, so I'll need to get them somewhere else. Poacher's Aim is what I've settled on. It's only 1 additional pierce. You can also rewire the tree slightly to go for piercing shots, maybe dropping the AoE nodes over here in order to do that, as well as perhaps this 3-point jewel socket. And then that's 5 points, which is how much this costs to get to. So you could grab this instead, 2 additional pierces, but you know, you're not getting that much from these 20% nodes. You get a little bit of dex here, which is kind of nice because you actually don't get much dex. Most of the time is spent, most of the pathing is spent over on this side of the tree. So the dex could help with stat requirements, I suppose, but it's not that big a deal. Yeah, Pierce has been something of a bugbear, putting the build together, but it's not an unsolvable one. And Poacher's Aim has worked just fine for me for leveling. We'll have to see how it fares in the end game. Aside from that, everything has been just fine and dandy. I absolutely have loved leveling this. I've practiced it twice now in hardcore, and both times it has been able to handle everything beautifully. And if you're interested in playing it and you've got any questions, feel free to let me know. Leave them in a comment below the video, or head over to my Discord. You'll find the link below, and you can talk to me live and in person there. Anyways, I hope to see you in the stream at the start of the 10-day race. I will be streaming at least 12 hours on day 1, probably more. And I hope to see you there. Thanks for watching, friends, and I'll see you in the next one.